Hello friends, you are all welcome on this learning platform Claim IAS. Today I am here with one of the important and famous personality of Western thinkers, that is J.S. Mill, meaning John Stuart Mill. Here friends, I will discuss brief background of J.S. Mill. Here friends, don't get confused. Students often get confused between J.S. Mill. Here J.S. Mill means John Stuart Mill. We are discussing about John Stuart Mill, right? John Stuart Mill was born on London, May 20, 1806. Here date and time is not that important from UPSC perspective. Let us move on to the next statement, that is J.S. Mill was son of James Stuart Mill, who was the best friend and follower of Jeremy Bentham. Here friends, J.S. Mill, John Stuart Mill, was the son of James Stuart Mill. Here difference is John Stuart Mill is the son of James Stuart Mill, right? This is what you have to understand here. And the next one is all his learning came from his father James Stuart Mill and his teacher Jeremy Bentham, right? John Stuart Mill used to get home schooling from his father James Stuart Mill and his teacher Jeremy Bentham. See friends, students often get confused in their relations and names. Let us understand their relation first. Here we are discussing about John Stuart Mill, right? We are discussing about this personality, right? Who is the father of John Stuart Mill? James Mill. James Mill is the father. And who is the son of James Mill? John Stuart Mill. We are discussing about John Stuart Mill. And who is the teacher of John Stuart Mill? Bentham. And what is the relation between James Mill and Bentham? Both of them are friends, right? James Mill and Bentham, they both are friends. And James Mill is the father of John Stuart Mill, and John Stuart Mill teacher is Jeremy Bentham. I hope it is clear, friends. Friends, now let us start with Bentham utilitarianism. Here I will discuss what is utilitarianism of Bentham. Before I start with what is Bentham utilitarianism, let us understand why he gave theory of utilitarianism. See friends, whatever person is doing is guided by utility. Bentham wants to understand that what shapes human behavior to decline towards something in which they get pleasure and to avoid something in which they feel hard or in which they get pain. The person in which they get pain, they avoid that, and in persons in which they get pleasure, they come towards that. Friends, in simple words, Bentham wants to understand what shapes someone's interest to do something in which they get interest and avoid something in which they get pain. This is the reason why Bentham wants to understand the theory of utilitarianism. He gave his own views on utilitarianism. What he gave his own view, let us understand here. The first thing he says about utilitarianism is nature have placed man under the governance of two sovereign masters. Underline your friend, two sovereign master, that is pleasure and pain. Here Bentham wants to say that nature has placed man under two sovereign, and those two sovereigns are pain and pleasure. And Bentham also says that every person will do that work in which they get pleasure and will run away from that work in which they get pain. This is what statement one says here, friends. The second statement is quality of pleasure is not important. Only quantity matters, right? There is nothing called higher pleasure or lower pleasure. There can be more or less pleasure. This is what Bentham says here. Friends, in this statement, Bentham says that pleasure you are getting from any sensory organs, that has nothing to do with quality. Here he talks about the quantity. He says that there is nothing to do with quality, only quantity is important because one can get more pleasure or less pleasure. But there is nothing called higher pleasure or lower pleasure. That is what Bentham says here. Friends, I would like to give a small example for this. Suppose, friends, there is person A here, right? There is person A. Here, person A may get more pleasure while reading books, or person A may get less pleasure by reading books. But there is nothing like person A is getting higher pleasure or lesser pleasure. There is nothing called higher pleasure or lower pleasure. That is what Bentham says here. And Bentham also says there is no concept of superior pleasure or inferior pleasures. As Bentham told friends, Pushpin is as good as poetry. Here, friends, Pushpin is a game like Ludo, basically a type of Ludo game. So Bentham says the pleasure which we get by reading poetry, same amount of pleasures you can also get by playing pushpin. So here, by this also, Bentham wants to say that pleasure has quantity and there is nothing called quality in the pleasure. That is what Bentham would like to suggest here. And the third statement is just like pleasure don't differ in quality, similarly, person also don't differ in quality. So let us understand this very briefly, friends. In the third statement, Bentham says here that pleasure has nothing to do with quality. In the same way, humans have three quality of souls. Right? We have studied in the Plato that elements of soul are three types. Right? So let us take an example, friends, to understand it better. Suppose here, friends, we have three persons, person A, right? Person B and person C, right? So we have three persons here, right? And in first persons, there is high probability that in the first person there is, sorry, he is very rational, right? Person A may be rational, right? And person B may be courageous, right? As we have studied in the elements of soul in the Plato chapter, and person C may be prominent with appetite, right? So these three elements of souls are same in the individuals, but the only difference is person A may have more. Person A might be more rational. So if he is more rational, he is capable enough to take decisions. So he may be the ruler class, right? In the same way, if the person is more courageous, he is suitable to be the soldier class. And if the person has more appetite, he is suitable to be the producer class, right? So here there is more, he can be more rational or less rational, right? But there is nothing called higher rational or lower rational. So here quality doesn't matter. The only thing matters here is less or more. That is quantity. That is what Bentham sees here, friends. So I hope it is clear. And the next statement is about the characteristics of pleasure according to Bentham. So the first one is pleasure is materialistic in origin. Here underline, friends. Materialistic in origins. Pleasure has nothing to do with experience, with sensory organs. So here, friends, pleasure, what is pleasure? Pleasure is all about the materialistic thing, about the bungalow, about the car, about the luxury things. This all comes under materialistic. So pleasure is nothing but it's all about the materialistic thing, right? That we try to taste from our sensory organs. Like, for example, we love eating food, right? For someone, food is a kind of pleasure, right? In the same way, for a person who dream to have a nice car, not nice bungalow, this all comes under materialistic thing, but nothing but pleasure, right? Everyone get pleasure by this materialistic thing. The second one is pleasure is a quantitative term for Bentham, friends. There is no concept of quality in pleasures. There can be either more or less. I have already explained you briefly about this, right? And the third one is there is no concept of superior pleasure or inferior pleasures. I've even discussed these, friends. So we have, as we can understand, friends, what is the characteristics of pleasure according to Bentham. And the next one is about the philosophic calculus. Is an algorithms given by Bentham to measure pleasure. So here, friends, Bentham have revised a formula to measure the quantity of pleasures known as philosophic calculus. So basically, here philosophic calculus means to measure the quantity of pleasures. So that is what philosophic calculus means. And the next one is greatest happiness for the greatest number of people. So here, friend, you can remember with GHGN. In shortcut, we call it as GHGN, greatest happiness for the greatest number of people. The best action is one that leads to greatest amount of happiness for the greatest number of people. Let us understand it very briefly, friends. So let us take a small example to understand about greatest happiness for the greatest number. So here, friends, let us take an example. In the first example, we'll take three characters. The first one is, let us take here, first one is police, right? The first character, there will be a police. Second, a small child roaming around the river, right? And the third one is a group of terrorists. Okay, these three characters we have took to understand the greatest happiness to the greatest number. Suppose there is a police standing here, right? There is a festival going on. Okay, like suppose we can take an example of Kumbh Mela. Recently, we are seeing this. There is a Kumbh Mela, right? So here there is a police who is watching and trying to protect the Kumbh Mela, right? So suddenly he have found that small children fell into the river where you are allotted for the duty. right? So here, police is there. If he found small children falling into the river, right? But at the same time, the police found that a group of persons are carrying bomb with them and running away, right? So in these situations, the police must try to catch the group of persons who are carrying bomb. Why? Because if we leave the persons, he may blast the whole city. If the terrorist blast the whole city, what will happen? The majority person will die. So here the police has to avoid the children who is falling into a river. He cannot save him. First he have to save the whole city. To save the whole city, he need to catch the terrorist. So I hope it is clear, friends. So in simple words, I would like to say that here the police duty must be to protect the majority, not the single, because here single life may be lost, right? But if he avoid this terrorist, the whole city is under the dangerous conditions, right? So at these situations, he has to think about the greatest happiness for the greatest number of people, right? So I hope it is clear, friends, right? And now, friends, let us understand Mill's revision of utilitarianisms. So what changes does John Stuart Mill have made by Bentham theory of utilitarianisms? So basically, Bentham gives a theory, right? So he is not satisfied with the Bentham theory. So he made his own theory on utilitarianism, right? The first changes that Mill made was pleasure is not quantitative. For Mill, pleasure is qualitative, right? Pleasure is qualitative. And for Bentham, it is quantitative. Why he said this? So here, Mill says that quantitative doesn't matter, but quality definitely matters in the pleasure. So for that, he says that Pushpin is not as good as poetry. For a wise person, reading poetry will always be beneficial. Why? Because if a wise person is there, he will always prefer to read poetry instead of playing pushpin. Why? Because if he read poetry, he will learn something. So whatever time he's giving in reading poetry will be worth it, right? A wise person who will never play pushpin. Why? Because he will see pushpin playing pushpin as a waste of time, right? So here quality matters. No matter means you can see, friends, what actually Mill says. Playing pushpin also gives pleasure. Reading poetry also gives pleasure. But here, for a wise person, if he reads poetry, he will learn something from it, right? So here, he will time will not be wasted, right? But if a wise person is playing pushpin, right? For him, it will be a waste of time, right? So here, that is what J.S. Mill says, that Pushpin is not as good as poetry. So I hope it is clear, friends. And the next one is the things which satisfy a pig will not satisfy a human being. So let us understand this. See, friends, pigs can sleep at any place, right? Even in the garbage. So a human cannot stay or sleep in the garbage because for humans, quality of pleasure matters. That is why J.S. Mill says here. And the next one is the thing which gives pleasure to a common man may not give pleasure to a man like Socrates, right? So here, friends, the pleasure, as I have told you, see here, friends, as I have told you, that Pushpin is not as good as poetry. So here, Socrates may love reading poetry. Why? Because Socrates is a wise man. He will love reading poetry. Why? Because he will see here that reading poetry, he will learn something, right? Well, it will be a meaningful time, right? But playing pushpin will be a waste of time. So for a common man, uh, playing pushpin would be a worth it, right? But people like Socrates will always prefer reading poetry. Why? Because if he reads poetry, there is no time waste. He will learn something from it. So that is what he says. The thing which gives pleasure to a common man may not give pleasure to a man like Socrates. Why? Because why he says man like Socrates? Why? Because Socrates is wisest man. He will be always giving his time in meaningful things, right? So one more statement, friends, that is very famous. That is, Mill was a Peter who denied his master. And why people say this statement? Why? Because Mill actually destroys the theory given by Bentham on utilitarianisms. So he made certain changes in the utilitarianism that Bentham gave. Right. The first changes he have made was he said that Bentham says that pleasure is nothing but pleasure matters in quantitative term, but Mill says that no, a pleasure without quality is useless, right? So various things that is denied by Mill on the utilitarianism given by Bentham. So various things Mill denied that was given by Bentham. So that's the reasons a statement that is always been in the controversy, that is Mill was a Peter who denied the master. So friends, I end up this lecture here, and our next topic will be on J. Mill theory of liberty. Right. So if you love watching our videos, do like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.